Welcome to Ladder Racing. Dirty Rascals Bandits tonight taking on Herd Drafting Dinos on the Muckle. We've got ourselves a doozy tonight. Muckle starting off with the champion sprint. Doesn't count. Down into the valley where we hit the breakaway bray, then up the Skur summit. That's the longer one with a relatively draftable, but it's a bit long and that one hurts. Down back into the, I'm going to call it the valley, but in the valley, hit the other side of the breakaway bray, loop back around, up the short side of the Skur summit. After Skur summit, we go into Glasgow, up the Clyde kicker, and then a finish on the champion sprint. Looks like we had a good matchup tonight. Even teams going up against each other. Guys are talking about strategy in the pen. We'll start with that before we jump into the race itself.
Lower than that.
So we'll probably have to hit them over and over and over again, especially on the flat part before this first climb. Because if we don't drop highly down, if we don't drop at least a couple times, we could be in trouble.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun to me.
Yeah.
Solid plan by Captain Dan. Let's see if we can pull it off. In following Captain Dan's strategy, we launched a couple attacks, tried to mix it up a bit. This was their first ladder race, so we didn't really know what to expect, but their stats were pretty solid with a lot of WKG, so we knew we weren't just going to be able to shake them without really working hard. So we pushed pretty hard right up until the castle corkscrew climb. You can see that here. Just going to take a minute here and point out the steering shenanigans that were happening up front between one of the dirt guys, George, and one of the herd racers. They were just steering left and right, trying to get out of each other's draft. I finally got my hands on a Sturzo, courtesy of Captain Dan, kind enough to drop it off. And boy, does it make a difference just knowing that I'm not going to be the guy who gets left behind because I'm in the win the entire time. Just had a good chuckle at that. Skip ahead a couple minutes. We were at the Castle Corkscrew and Keith and Dan decided to go for it, which resulted in us dropping one of their guys off the back towards the end of the climb. So 1 down, 4 more to go. Skip forward a few kilometers, decided to have a little dig just to see how everyone's legs were looking. And as Keith notes, I put the steering to full use just to see how it would mess with the rhythm of the race. So that was fun.
He's taking advantage of that steering.
After that, Keith and Dan decided to roll some attacks going into the long Skur segment. Leading into it, we're all feeling a little rough. Unfortunately, dropped one on the way in, and lost another dirt on the climb. So we were looking a little thin at the front after the first big selection point. Just a note, it wasn't a very nice thing for me to do, to surge through George and leave him in the dust. Not the best thing to do to a teammate. I should have not gone through him so quickly and left him behind. Ideally, what you do is bring him along with you when there's a gap like that you're filling. When your eyes are bleeding and you're just cresting the summit of a couple-minute climb, it's hard to remember these things. The descent was pretty uneventful. Got to a point where there's a 5 or 6 second gap between us and George, and Keith decided to go back and try to pull him back to the group. Unfortunately, despite Keith's effort and George burying himself, couldn't quite make it, which left Keith out in the dust. So Dan decided to go back and grab Keith, and they both made it back to the group. Not only did they make it back to the group, they surged through the group, attacked, and created a little separation, which brought one of the herd guys with them and left me, I think, 3-on-1 for a while there. Take a look. I rolled with the 3 herd guys for a while. Thankfully, they did try to attack me too aggressively. I managed to weather a few of their moves, and we ended up in the skur, on the short side of the skur. So I decided maybe I'd give it a little go here and see if maybe I could drop one of their guys. And I did. Managed to get to the top with only the 2. I thought I had dropped a second one, but he did it really well to link back up. So going into Glasgow, it was Dan and Keith up front against Fowler from Dinos, and myself against 2 of the herd guys, with one trailing behind and George not too far behind. Going into the final stretch in Glasgow, we have a Clyde kicker, some up and down, and finish on the champion sprint. George did really well here to bridge the gap to the guy in front of him. I think he was down 5 or 6 seconds at one point and just buried himself to get ahead of the guy that I dropped on the skur short side. And that was a huge move on his part, because it allowed us to hop ahead on the second last guys, and I was 2-on-1. The herd guys did really well to try to shake me. They kept rolling on and off and attacking me, and their last move was was really strong. I just anticipated it, and take a look. It was a fun finish. There you have it. Dirty Rascals Bandits takes the win. It was a close call. I think it was a really fun race, and I'm really enjoying these ladder races. And I've got to say, the effort that's put into these races mentally and physically isn't really reflected by the stats that come out and the numbers at the end. If you just take a look at the stats, the Zwift powered link is below.
Good, nice, Dan. Get him, Dan.
It really didn't feel like a 3.7 effort for me.
Got him.
It felt a lot harder than that.
Nice, yeah.
Probably feel it tomorrow morning. But shout out to the Drafting Dinos.
Nice, Remy.
They put up a really good fight, and
Work, guys.
we live to race another day. I hope you enjoy the coverage, and you enjoy the videos and the channel, and always open to hearing some comments and feedback if you have any. Till next time.